Nguyên cũng có đôi lời xin thưa cùng với quý vị là thưa quý vị, cuốn phim như quý vị đã biết là do chính phủ Canada tài trợ về phần tài chính, nhưng mà để đem quảng bá cuốn phim này rộng rãi đến những cộng đồng hay là đến công chúng ở khắp nơi thì nhóm thực hiện dự án cũng như là ban tổ chức tại địa phương phải chịu trách nhiệm về những chi phí đó. Cho nên chúng tôi rất là mong muốn được đem cuốn phim này chiếu đến khắp nơi ở Canada, ở những thành phố, ở những nơi mà nhỏ và họ không có điều kiện để mà tổ chức những buổi chiếu phim như vậy. Cho nên là chúng tôi có những cái thùng để xin nhận những cái
Q&A portion of the screening. I would like to invite the panelists to make their way to the stage. And while I do that, I would like to make a special appeal to members in the audience. The project team would like to bring this film to as many communities across Canada as possible, including communities that don't have the resources to mount such an event. That's why you will have seen donation boxes build the funds that will go directly into further screenings of this film.
Và để chuẩn bị cho phần hỏi đáp thì chúng tôi xin mời quý vị hãy chuẩn bị câu hỏi của mình dành cho những quý vị ở trong ban hội thảo. Thì chúng tôi có hai cái microphone, một cái ở đây và một cái ở cuối khán phòng đằng kia. Xin quý vị hãy chuẩn bị vì thời giờ của chúng ta rất có hạn. Và chúng tôi xin trân trọng giới thiệu đến quý vị trên sân khấu là bà Sheila Thatto, đạo diễn của cuốn phim tài liệu Đường Đến Tự Do mà quý vị vừa xem xong. Cựu giáo sư Alan Moscovitz của trường Đại học Carleton về ngành công tác xã hội, ông Mike Molloy, chủ tịch của Hiệp hội Lịch sử và Di dân Canada. Ông cũng là đồng tác giả của quyển sách Running on Empty, Canada và người tị nạn Đông Dương năm 1975, năm 1980. Ông Peter Duchinski cũng là đồng tác giả của quyển sách Running on Empty và cô Tuyết Lê, một trong những thuyền nhân đã được phỏng vấn trong cuốn.
Xin lỗi, ông thầy giáo Alan Moscovitz không có ở đây ha, cho xin giới thiệu bằng tiếng Anh. If I may introduce to you the panelists on stage, starting with the left side of the stage is Ms. Sheila Petzold, the director of the film. One of the interviewees, one of the participants in this oral history project, who was featured on the film. Mike Molloy, president of the Canadian, I'm sorry, lost my spot. Yes, the president of the Canadian Immigration and Historical Society and co-author of Running on Empty, Canada and the Future of 1975-1945, and Peter Duchinsky, also co-author of Running on Empty, and author of an upcoming book to be published in 2024. We cannot really see whether or not there are people lining up at the microphones on the floor just quite yet. Please do make your way to the microphone, and if you need translation, nếu mà có ai mà cần thông dịch đó thì là có cô Phương Hạnh đã đứng sẵn để mà thông dịch tiếng Anh và tiếng Việt.
Và tại vì
role in that. I was put in a closet for 6 weeks, and I signed visas from dawn to dusk every day. A lot of the Czech people think that I had a lot to do with their coming to Canada. Actually, the only thing I accomplished was I arrived with a very long signature and I left with a very short one. But in that case, there was no, this is 1969, there was no immigration law whatsoever that said anything about refugees. And so we pretty well had to make it up as it went. Then a few years later, I ended up in Uganda when Idi Amin expelled the Asian Indian people from there. And by that stage, there were some rules around refugees. And we moved, I think it was 6,000 people out in 6 weeks. And then Idi Amin, the dictator, sort of dropped down the curtain. It was very frantic, but the big advantage those people had was that they all spoke English. And so it was very easy, much easier for them to adapt to Canada. The big change with the people, and there were a few other movements around that time. We had some Chileans and Argentinians escaping persecution in those countries that came in as well. But we had never had a really large movement of people from Asia or anywhere else. You know, that first 3 years, it was over 70,000, and by the time we were through in 1997, we had brought in over 200,000 people from Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. It's an enormous number. What helped with that was, by that time, we were able to actually create separate rules for each movement. So we'd say, okay, the Vietnamese, Laos, and Cambodians have this characteristic. That will be the definition. They will have to be from those countries, left after this date, nobody else has taken them. You want to go to Canada, you're ours. So that was fairly easy, and we were able, that's on the operational side. On the reception side, of course, we had just introduced the private sponsorship program. And the original agreement was signed with the middle of 1979. By May, they and 2 other churches had sponsored. This 2 months later, we had sponsorships for 1,200 people. By the end of August, we had sponsorships for 10,000 people. By the end of October, the government had asked for 22,000 sponsorships. We had 28,000 sponsorships. And by the end of the program, 7,000 groups had sponsored 39,990 something people. I wish they'd done a little bit harder. It'd be so much easier to say 40,000, but it wasn't quite that. So the big change was having that thing that allowed us to take advantage of the goodwill and the concerns of Canadians. That made all the difference. And there was a study done some years back that showed that while the United States takes, at that stage, not necessarily now, took the most refugees, and the Australian government took the second most refugees, it was Canadian sponsors who took the 3rd biggest group, and the Canadian government took the 4th. So I think the really big thing that we have, our secret weapon, it's not so secret anymore because all sorts of other countries are copying it, but our most effective tool is the fact that when Canadians get concerned about something they're hearing on the radio or seeing on television or nowadays, I guess, on the internet, there is a tool they can use. And you can get 5 people together and sponsor a refugee. Thank you.
Vì họ thì thấy là không phải vì lý do gì, nhưng mà tại vì người ta ngại cái tương lai người ta tới một cái đất nước mà người ta không biết. Thì xin nhắc lại là có cái cách nào để quý vị giải thích để thuyết phục những người đó đi Canada. Điều thứ hai là trong khoảng người tị nạn, đặc biệt là người tị nạn Việt Nam, giả dụ như là chỉ nhận những người có gia đình, hoặc là ưu tiên cho những người độc thân, hoặc là ưu tiên cho những đứa trẻ vị thành niên đi không có cha mẹ kèm theo. Xin quý vị giải thích cho biết. Cảm ơn.
Hello. Yeah.
Please refuse me because the Americans won't look at me unless we're refused by Canada or Australia or one of those. And I think the typical answer of our visa officers was push on. We don't do that. But so there was a real preference by many people to go to the United States, and that's fair enough. But we never had any trouble filling our planes, for sure. And as word got back over time, and people heard back in the camps of the kind of reception that we're getting in Canada, I think, well, as I say, we never had any trouble meeting our quotas. The second part.
Were there any priorities?
Oh yes, okay. Yes, there were priorities. We had the authority to react very quickly when a special case was brought to their attention. We record in the book, for example, an officer being told that a boat had arrived recently and a number of the women had been violated by pirates along the way. They were on the plane to Canada the next day. When in another case where the boat was a refugee boat was cut in half by pirate boats, and the people left to survive.
One, and then they were chosen there. And that early movement that shows up in the interviews, the oral interviews that we performed in the Hearts of Freedom project, quite a few of the military people did not want to go to the United States. They specifically said anywhere but the United States. The Americans betrayed us. They left in 1973, and we want to go to Canada. It was kind of striking in looking at those interviews that these people really wanted to go to Canada, and they were chosen mostly from these Pacific Islands, but also quite a few of them were chosen from camps in the United States. They were already physically in the United States, yet they wanted to come to Canada. And just one more comment about the single young man. In this early movement, which, as Mike has pointed out, brought to Canada 9,000 people, by just under 9,000.
Đạo để cứu vớt 4 người còn lại cuối cùng tại Thái Lan hay không? Xin cảm ơn Mr. Peter and Mr. McLeod.
I have a question for Mr. Peter and Mr. Michael. I'm TRONG from Mississauga. And the question is regarding Vietnamese refugees who are stuck in Thailand. So the 4 people remaining in the Thai refugee camp can come to Canada. Do you need me to a refugee program to bring them over?
Did I hear correctly? It's just 40 people. I think there have been. I'm aware of 2. The trick is always to bring these situations to the attention of the political authorities rather than the bureaucratic authorities, because the civil servants right now are literally up to their ears in refugees. We've got the massive movement out of Ukraine, the massive movement out of Afghanistan, people from Venezuela, and we're bringing in close to 50,000 a year now. And so if there's special small groups, you've got to get the attention of the political authorities, because the civil servants' bookings are booked out for years ahead. And so that would be my advice to you, is that you should be talking to, or your representatives should be talking at the highest level to the immigration minister, to the prime minister, if you can get to them, because it's that kind it's at that kind of level that those kind of decisions are made.
Cô Lê Trần Phương Hạnh, cô Christine Lê, quý anh Mai Liên, Nguyễn Trung Thu, Huỳnh Đạt, Nguyễn Huê, Lê Duy. Xin cảm ơn Hội Phụ nữ Việt Nam, Toronto, bà Hoàng Bình Minh, Hội Cao niên Toronto, ông Nguyên Nghĩa, The VN Collective, ông Hoàng Hùng, Hội Quốc tổ Hùng Vương, ông Nguyễn Công Minh, ông Dương Bá Thuần, Ủy ban yểm trợ phong trào dân chủ quốc nội, quý anh Nguyễn Văn Tấn, Trương Phước Nhỏ, Thánh thất Cao Đài, ông Nguyễn Đức Miên, đài VBS, chị Phạm Diễm Hương, hội trưởng hội tưởng niệm tùy nhân Toronto, anh Nguyễn Phan Pha, cùng quý anh chị Nguyễn Thành Nguyên, Nguyễn Thị Bích Thi, Đàm Trung Phán, Võ Thành Tân, Nguyễn Ngọc Duy, Thái Trúc Quỳnh, Phạm Diễm Hương. Xin cảm ơn Phở 90, anh Tôn Thất Hùng, và Movie Recording, anh Nguyễn Huê, quý anh trong ban nhiếp ảnh, anh Huỳnh Đạt và ông Đàm Trung Phán, Liên hội người Việt Canada, ông Trương Minh Trí. Và kính thưa quý vị, xin nhắc lại là chúng tôi có những cái thùng donation ngoài kia, xin nhận những sự yểm trợ với lòng hảo tâm của quý vị để cho cuốn phim này được quảng bá rộng rãi ở.
Both commemorate the refugees who lost their lives in search for freedom, and to express gratitude to Canada for welcoming the refugees and providing them with safe harbor. When you leave, please spend some time visiting the memorial. Members of the committee responsible for conceiving and realizing this memorial will be on hand to answer your questions.
Và trên đường quý vị bước vào rạp hát, chắc quý vị đã nhìn thấy đài tưởng niệm tùy nhân Việt Nam. Đài tưởng niệm này đã được khánh thành vào tháng 9 năm 2019 để tưởng niệm những đồng bào ruột thịt của chúng ta đã không may bỏ mình trên bước đường tự do, và cũng để tri ân chính phủ Canada và thế giới vì lòng nhân đạo đã giang tay đón nhận và cho chúng ta một cơ hội bắt đầu một cuộc sống mới bình an trên quê hương thứ hai này. Xin kính mời quý vị hãy cùng ghé ngang đài tưởng niệm tùy nhân. Quý anh chị ở trong ban vận động xây dựng sẽ có mặt ở đó để đón tiếp quý vị cũng như là trả lời những câu hỏi của quý vị nếu có. Xin kính chào tạm biệt và xin chúc quý vị một ngày tốt lành.
Thì năm nay là my conversation with you is like storytelling. How we want to tell the story, and it was more just like, and the way I pitched it, the document that you saw, right? This is like engaging in a conversation about what it is filming.
Chứ không cần phải kiểu gì cái nhà mua
And how you gave that up, but also how you gave that up with.
cho Hùng là hiệu trưởng
Sướng.
That's happening in the going.
Exactly. And as long as my kid, I asked him a question before, he was shocked. And I said, how many people your class?
Maybe one of my